Okay, let's bring in New South Wales opposition leader and a former colleague of Gladys Berejiklian. That's Mark Speakman. Mark, thank you very much for your time. Now, the watchdog tasked with investigating potential corruption is now facing an investigation into its own conduct over the handling of this probe. We know there's been a lot of criticism of it. What is your take on this? Does ICAC have too much power and does it use it properly?
Well, it's extremely important in New South Wales that we do have a strong, independent, robust ICAC to prevent corruption, to detect corruption and report on corruption. So that's a no-brainer. We need a strong ICAC. But it's also important that ICAC does its work in a timely manner, and that hasn't happened in this case. There's almost, it seems to me, a universal consensus here in New South Wales among politicians that we need to improve ICAC's timeliness. This report took almost 1,000 days from the first announcement of public hearings. That's far too long, and in future we want to see time standards. So we as an opposition offered to work with the government to legislate that, and I'm pleased to see that the Premier has indicated he is willing to legislate in this area and require ICAC to publish its own time standards that it would have to comply with.
Has your view of the former Premier changed?
Look, I worked for a number of years in Gladys's cabinet, and she was an outstanding Premier, extraordinarily diligent, someone who worked her guts out for New South Wales at the time of what was the greatest crisis this state faced since the Second World War. We were facing a 1 in 100 year pandemic. That was on the back of record bushfires, record drought, and I think she handled that pandemic magnificently. Look, she was certainly helped by a great team of health professionals and by the general cooperation of the New South Wales public, who endured a lot during that lockdown. But she was a magnificent leader. When I say that, that's not an excuse for any corruption that a court, if there's an appeal, might ultimately find, but it's to put this woman in context. And when history judges Gladys Berejiklian, I hope it judges, and it should judge Gladys very kindly, because she was an extraordinary leader. So my dealings with her, my face-to-face dealings with her, she was scrupulous, honest and meticulous, and always putting the public interest first.
Yeah, I think really well said. Now, starting tomorrow, let's get on to real issues that actually matter to people. Hundreds of thousands of Australians will face significant price hikes over the coming financial year. In New South Wales, we'll see electricity prices rise by up to 25% for some. We'll also see payment increases in health insurance premiums, mobile phone plans, superannuation, add a million things onto the list because they're all there. Also a potential for a rate rise by the RBA next week. How much more can people, not just in New South Wales, but this country, take of this kind of thing?
Well, this is the worst cost of living crisis we've had for many decades. Inflation is now higher than it's been for about 40 years, and it's higher in Australia than just about every G7 country. In fact, every G7 country except the United Kingdom. So families right across the board are doing it tough. Some of the matters you identified, interest rates and health insurance premiums, are beyond the control of state governments. But state governments, like here in New South Wales, have a role to play in easing cost of living pressures. And what we've seen in New South Wales, one of the very first things that this new government is doing is cutting the cost of living support that our government was offering families here in New South Wales. So they went to the election saying they would roll over the very popular Active Kids vouchers. Now they're going to cut them by 85%. They're going to cut them out completely for most kids in New South Wales. And those kids who get them, they're going to cut them by 2/3. And that was an important cost of living measure. We've now seen a whole range of cost of living measures here that are potentially under threat. Regional travel card. We had a much more expansive energy relief policy than they are proposing. Yep. So I know times are tough for budgets, but at a time of cost of living crisis for many families, surely the first priority of government is to support families meet their day-to-day needs. Yeah,
I think a lot of people will agree with you. Very quickly, The Voice, yes or no, how will you vote? I've only got 5 seconds.
I am yet to declare my position. I'm still reading all the submissions. I've consulted with many people, and I hope to announce a position in a few weeks.
Okay, TBC, Mark Speakman, thank you so much for your time.